Hello, everyone. Welcome to our cargo bike Skillshare this evening. We're super excited to have you here. We wanted to give the chance for folks to trickle in as well as introduce themselves in the chat. We want this to be a community space that folks can learn from one another, but also get to know one another. So happy to be doing that in the chat and to learn from some cargo bike users themselves this evening. My name's Ellie. I work at Perennial as a event and group ride leader, as well as some social media. Um, and Luke and I are really thrilled to have some special guests with us today to talk about cargo bikes and learn from one another on some best practices, tips and tricks, all those kinds of things. So very happy to have you here. Just to give an overview of our time together, we'll hear from our three different presenters. And then at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. Folks are welcome to put in questions throughout the presentations into the chat, and we'll make sure that those get answered from our panelists. And then we'll have a quick raffle at the end. So it'll be a great time to learn from one another and kind of start the conversation on cargo bikes. So thank you all again for attending. We are recording this evening just so we can share it out after the fact. And yeah, stay tuned on our social media channels for more to come after this. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mary Morse Marti, who is our first presenter this evening. And Mary's going to talk about being a first year cargo bike owner. So I am going to hand it over to Mary.
Thanks, Ellie.
Here we go.
I love that baby. I wish it
That's
were
coming
mine.
soon. Don't you worry. Go ahead.
This is me. So I'm Mary Morse Marti. I live here in the Twin Cities, and I have, as Ellie said, had my cargo bike for just under a year. And I have to say the asterisk is there because that is not my dog and that is not my cargo bike. But I am a complete fan. Several friends are here tonight. I love that. And they know that I can't stop talking about this stuff. I am a longtime nonprofit leader, executive director. I founded a car share here in St. Paul in Minneapolis called Our Car. And I have run a number of transportation demand management programs trying to get people out of their cars and onto more sustainable transportation. So that's my cred. And I would like to share with you a few of my exciting moments, ups and downs, and we'll go from there. So next slide, please. So first of all, this is really about you. Anyone here who is curious about other people's experience, I mean, I am super excited to hear from the rest of you on how you've made this work and the tricks and other ways that this has become something that you do every day. And if you have not gotten out and gotten your bike yet, I suggest that you do a needs inventory at the very first moment. Figure out what you really want to do. Are you going to be carrying children to daycare? Are you going to be bringing larger kids everywhere? How fast do you feel you need to go? Are you comfortable just, taking it easy, or do you really want to make some speed? Do you want to pedal or not so much? And if you want to pedal, how far do you think you'll go? Do you have any range anxiety if you don't pedal? What kind of storage space do you need? How much do you need to bring home? Besides your passenger or passengers, what do you need to have on the bike? Are you worried about security? Like, where do you live? Do you live in an apartment building that doesn't have a secure storage space? Do you live in a house that has no garage? Think about all those things. And finally, your budget. And it's super exciting to see all the new bikes coming online. There are bikes now at almost every price point. And so that's something that I think no longer is such a big concern. So next slide. Very quickly, since some of you are from Cape Cod and San Francisco and Manila and Washington and South Carolina, Minnesota is releasing an e-bike rebate this spring. It will be pretty spectacular. They have allocated $4 million to the program. It's going to be released in over 2 years. Income-based sliding scale. I think, $1,500 is the maximum rebate for a pretty restricted income level. And then there's this really goofy formula that'll get you to the point where you know exactly how much you qualify for. And at that point, we believe it will be more like a lottery. If you get your name in and get a certificate, then you can take it to a certified retailer. And the bill text, all of it is in orange at the bottom of the starred list. And their Bike&Men is keeping a pretty good track of what's happening with the bill. But you can also reach out to the Department of Commerce or the Department of Revenue, and they have email alerts that you can sign up for. But it looks like it's all going to be happening in May and June, and we can talk about that more at the end. So, baby's first year. This is my cargo bike, and I bought it at Perennial last year in April, just when we started losing our snow. And I bought a Yuba Fast Track, and it was at the time a very new bike. The model had just recently come out. I think I got the first one. Yeah, I did. Thanks, Luke. And I bought it for a whole bunch of reasons. One of the reasons was that it's a little bike. It's not a really super long tail bike, and it's pretty. So how's that? I knew I wanted to try carrying a passenger. I knew that I was going to be spending most of my time on it shopping for groceries and dog food and things like that. Well, I did. And I put about 700 miles on it so far. I'll probably, in Minnesota, we haven't had any snow this year, like nothing to speak of. So unless things change, I'm sure I'll hit 800 by April. Next slide, please. So what do I love about it? My bike is not the Yuba on the left, but it's the Yuba on the right with the plastic cargo container on it. I love this bike, as I said, because it's small. It has 20-inch chubby tires. It fits everybody in my household. I have a husband who's 6'1". I'm about 5'6". And occasionally my son might use it, or a friend. It fits everybody. It has a multi-position integrated rack. Truly, one of my favorite things about this bike is it has this rack that you don't need tools for. It goes up, it goes down, it becomes footrests for your passenger. It does flat position so that you can haul big, heavy, flat things on top of it, and the many, many points to put on straps and bungees. And it carries 440 pounds. And this picture was at the Minnesota State Fair, where they have a fabulous bike corral. And I've never had as much fun as looking at all of the cargo bikes that came to the state fair this year. Next slide, please. So even more, look at the tiny wheels. Follow the orange arrow, and you can see these tiny wheels. Those wheels allow you to flip the bike up on its end so that it could store in that position. So it can sit on the tiny wheels and on those cool little jets. Somebody asked me if I have a jet pack on the back of this bike. So flip the bike up vertically, and then you can tip it onto those two wheels and roll it into your apartment building, roll it directly into the elevator in its vertical position, take it up to your apartment, roll it down the hallway, and keep it in there, and it barely takes up any space at all. So I think for city dwellers, this feature we'll start seeing on more bikes because it's amazing. And for, I said this before, it's so pretty. Next slide. This bike has made me lose my mind. I can't stop riding it. Those of you with cargo bikes probably have experienced this. And I don't know if you know Betty Teasel. I don't know if she's here tonight, but she was laughing. It's like you start in eco mode and you do your business. You go shopping and you go where you're going. and then you end up in boost mode, which is for my bike, the top power, and you ride for everything. So you start out thinking, I am going to go get toilet paper. And you end up saying, I'm going to get toilet paper and I'm going to go to the new coffee house that's 12 miles away. And then I'm going to go see if a friend is home. Then I'm going to ride this new trail. And you do it all on the same trip because it's so easy and because you can carry things with you that make you always prepared. That for my cargo bike is amazing. I don't have to hook my pannier up to it. I just leave my bucket on and everything goes in there. And my husband's stuff goes in there. So when we bike together, it's all there. It truly is a game changer. I mean, you can hear the excitement and enthusiasm in my voice. And that is because it has changed the way I bike. I have 3 other bikes. I have a beautiful road bike. I have a 1982 Raleigh that I just love. And I've got a crappy bike that I bring with me when I don't want to tie up to anything. And it doesn't matter. This bike is my bike of choice almost all the time now, not because it's so easy, but because it's so useful. Next slide. And then, of course, there are things I do for peace of mind. I went out and I invested in a very nice German lock, and it's a great lock. It gives me peace of mind. And like I said in an article I wrote recently, unless people are out there with angle grinders, we're pretty secure. I registered my bike on Bike Index, and I have an insurance rider on my homeowner's insurance, but you can get that on renter's insurance, or you can just talk to most of your credit unions now and get bike insurance. It's pretty amazing. Next slide. So here's the things I wish I knew, and now you'll see how stupid I am. Don't you love this picture, by the way? This is a guy, one of my ex-friends in Nashville, and he brings everyone on his bike. He said he's used his cargo bike for 10,000 miles now, and he's got it set up like this, and he literally brings 2 people. I took my bike in for its tune-up, and and they told me, the tech ran the numbers on my motor and said, do you know how to turn your motor on properly? And I did not. So I was laughing. It didn't harm the performance of my bike, and it didn't harm the bike, but I learned a better way to turn my bike on. I need more information from the rest of you on how to balance loads. Carrying an adult for me is not as easy as I would hope it would be. And that may just be how I'm writing, or it may be something else. And I would love to hear from the rest of you on handling flat tires and other calamities when your bike is huge. I have a car, so I can put it on a rack, but what if I'm out in the middle of nowhere? And then I need to practice using the walk feature because I want to walk it upstairs. And last slide, please. That's it. Thank you very much. I can't wait to hear from the rest of you, and I want a vigorous conversation.
Thank you, Mary. And a wonderful dialogue already happening in the chat. It's great to hear people sharing some tips already. I love what people are saying about, adding to the list of thinking about maintenance that you're going to do on your bike, as well as like what's a local bike shop that will do work on an e-bike. Those are both great things. And again, everyone be thinking about those questions that Mary had. If you have tips or tricks, please put them in the chat as well. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Arleigh, who's going to be starting next. And Arleigh's going to be talking a little bit about safety and family cargo bikes. So safety in terms of like security of cargo bikes. So I will pass it over and share a short PowerPoint.
Ellie, for security reasons, I cannot start my video.
Oh, there you go. Let's see if that works now. Perfect. Yes, thanks.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone that's local to Perennial understands how amazing you have it with Perennial Cycles, but also Mary, oh my gosh, you are such an amazing advocate, and gosh, every good town needs you. that's what we need to get more people on bikes, is not just the bike shops, but great advocates. I do want to say that I've been following this e-bike rebate, and Luke has done so much work. So make sure you applaud everyone that's working hard. These things take years, and you wouldn't understand how much time bike shops and bike brands and advocates spend to hopefully get, you know, a little piece of the pie. So thank you. This is my little Ellie. This was 8 years ago. So my background, I've been in the bike industry for a long time. I'm known as Bike Shop Girl on the internet, and I've always really been an advocate for women in cycling. That's kind of where the Bike Shop Girl brand came from. I was working in bike shops and didn't see a lot of me, and just was trying to get out information about getting more women on bikes. Fast forward, we had our first daughter, and I kind of lost, not my sense of place, but, you know, I couldn't go on these great road rides or get out because I had this little one with me. And so we walked a lot. And then Barb at Splendid Cycles out in Portland introduced me to bike feet that could safely take a car seat. So she's in an infant seat here, strapped to the frame of the bike. And at the time I lived in Denver, Colorado, and we would just go for as long as we could, exploring the bike trails and all the low stress streets. And this, to me, just changed my perspective of what bikes were. Before, it was like a social thing I did with friends, or a way that I could, you know, get that exercise out. And then I was experiencing it with my kids and my family, and it was just life-changing. And if you have ever had young kids, it was sanity. You know, I could get on and go do things that I enjoyed, or do things for my kids, but I was getting me time in, instead of just sitting in a car frustrated and hearing bickering in the back. So this was kind of my gateway. So this was a bike feet that I ordered sight unseen to Denver, Colorado. Fast forward 2-3 years, still no one in the area knew what they were talking about when they had cargo bikes. So I opened a cargo bike shop, and that's how actually I met Luke. And it was just so fun, you know, just getting families and businesses and people to realize that life is so much more enjoyable when you are doing it by bike. And then add in your kids, and it's life-changing. If you want to give me the next slide. So this is my second child. This is Felix, and this is an updated, so this is the Urban Arrow. It has a infant seat attachment that's actually suspended. And what was beautiful, I had to upgrade to this bike because it had electric assist, but in front of him, kind of close to the handlebars, 2 kids could sit. So I was able to put my little one, and then at that time, I think my first was maybe 4 or 5. And so we were a car late family. You know, my wife needed to be able to get to work, but I didn't have a car. And this photo means a lot to me because this was the day I took over the lease of my bike shop space. So if you want to keep going to the next one. And this is the kids grown up. And so we now have a third, and I have another Urban Arrow, but this is what they know. This is their life. They know getting around by bike, and they're so much happier, and our family is so much happier when, you know, we get to school or get home or go to the bakery or go to the library by bike, and they don't understand the actual, you know, science behind it. They just know that they can talk to us and it's easier to interact. So it's a amazing experience. And one thing I will say is part of this experience, especially with kids, is that you have to have good infrastructure, or at least low stress streets. And ideally either a Perennial or a specialist bike shop, or if you don't have that, just local knowledge, you know, just trying to, you know, for example, in DC, there's some parents that host a cargo bike petting zoo where just you bring your cargo bike and you can ask questions and show up. I don't know if they let people test ride, but I think you can just go and see all the different versions of cargo bikes and what people have done. The next one, please. And so this is a great example. This is a turn GSD. I kicked my kids off because I had to go across this really sketchy bridge, but this is what you can do with your kids. You know, they were able to pop off, play with tadpoles, enjoy a moment, and then we hopped back on and kept going. If you're in a car, that's 2 car seats, that's buckling in and out, that's finding parking, and then walking to wherever you're going. Especially when you have little kids, I always said it was my cheat code. You know, I would just strap them in, go right up to the front door, hop out. You know, they have all their snacks. In Colorado and also in Minneapolis, you just put your kids in their snow gear and they're warm. There's no like taking off the jacket to get in the car seat or anything. You just load them up, arrive to where you're going, and they're great. Is there one more? I don't remember how many I sent you. Oh yeah, so this is where I want to end it. This is a portable potty that fits in a pannier, highly suggested. It has little bags at the bottom. But this to me was just a true, you know, like nowhere else would I have been able to do this, right? Like just, this is what's always with us. There was no going back to the car. There was no leaving to find the bathroom. There's just being prepared for your daily adventure and knowing what your kids need, which is typically change of clothes, depending how old they are, maybe a potty, and then lots of snacks and sunscreen. So I think for me, the goal of this was just to kick off the Q&A at the end of just, there's so much to know, especially when you start carrying kids. Luke and I have probably helped hundreds, if not 1,000 people test ride at this point. And so much of it is what your goals are, where you're riding, how old your kids are, and then storage, you know, what does your setup look like? I'm fortunate that I have a garage dedicated to cargo bikes, but not everyone is. So, you know, I think during the Q&A, we'll get into that, just any specific questions of ages or weather or anything like, and then also just to start with your local community. You know, I started before opening a shop with Piecycle Max rides and getting like-minded families together. You know, and that could be just riding to get, you know, a pastry together or to a park. It doesn't have to be like a group ride. Typically, you're worried about the destination and less of the actual ride. So I think that was, I just wanted to kick us off for Q&A. And I also get to talk about bike security, which I have so many opinions on. This image I stole from Kryptonite. They have a wonderful resource at Kryptonite locks. I personally use mostly either Avis or Kryptonite locks, but what this is showing you is just how to lock and what to lock to. Anytime a person came in to buy a bike, even if it was a city commuter that cost $500, I told everyone, look to spend at least 5% of your bike on security. And so that could be anything from 1 to 3 locks or more. It could be now with the Nog Scout, which is a little basically air tag with an alarm. There's GPS tracking in some of the newer bikes. So it really depends on where you're locking, how long you're locking for, and then what type of bike you have. You know, I once locked up in downtown Denver for an all-day event, and I think I had 6 locks. I'm not even exaggerating. And I put the bike between 2 different racks because if they were going to cut the rack, which they can do, they were going to need to cut 2 racks. Unfortunately, that place wouldn't let me bring my bike in. Normally, I would not go to that extreme. If I need more than 3 locks, I am convincing somebody with a $20 bill just to bring my bike in, you know, or a coffee or a pastry. And typically they're fine, but something to know, I don't think enough people budget for the security aspect. You know, they think about the bike, they think about what am I going to carry, and they forget like, hey, I need to lock this and I need to secure it. Yes, bribe security strategy. I am known for bringing in my big turn GSD into the front of our grocery store because they don't have any racks. And every time I just do the very like pitiful mom look of like, I've got a lot of kids and I just need to get one thing. But, you know, what I would say also is talk to your locals. You You know, where I live now in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, we don't really have bike theft. You know, some of the messengers use really cheap locks. But saying all that, I still lock, because I am riding an expensive bike, with 2 locks all the time, typically a wheel lock, and then what's called a frame lock extension, which if anybody wants to see, I can grab. And that goes into my wheel lock, around something, and then back, and then a really heavy duty lock. And the last thing I want to say about this, other than the budget aspect, there's 2 places that I look at for security ratings. One's going to be called ART, A-R-T, and the other one's going to be called Sold Secure. And these are 2 European lock rating companies, and that's who I look to. I don't trust whatever the marketing is that a lock company's telling me. I'm going to see what they've been tested to. There's also the Lock Picking Lawyer, which is a very fun YouTube channel. But typically those 2 first places that I recommended, Gold Secure is what I'm using on all of my electric bikes, and then a secondary lock. Yes, Forrest, 5% gives you permission for sure, but you know, I know folks that have paid $500 for locks just because where they're going. Oh, and last thing about e-bikes, if you can, bring your battery in with you. If you're running into the grocery store, as long as it's not super hot or super cold, you might be fine. But other than that, I've been known to go into the movies with my battery in my backpack. Bike insurance, I would love, maybe if everyone could just put in who they're using for bike insurance. It's super location focused. I use State Farm, who is my umbrella insurance. But I know folks are using Sunday, I think it's called, is a popular one right now, and Fellow Insurance. I think that's all I got. I can keep talking, but I think that was 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Arleigh. And I love what is popping up in the chat too about some insurance recommendations, as well as Laura shared that snacks and a portable speaker playing music really helped to alleviate some on-bike tantrums. So always good to have that ready to go. But yeah, love all these tips. Keep sharing them in the chat. While we hear from Terrie and Levi from Piecycle for our final speakers, they're going to be talking a little bit about group ride basics, organizing and participating in group rides, talking about Piecycle Club, which is the group that they started, and I'll put their handle and information in the chat, and we'll go ahead and hand it over their way.
Oh, there we go. I can start my video. Hi, Levi, thank you for the introduction. There's Terrie down there. We started Piecycle. I'll do the history bit at the beginning here, and then Terri's going to jump into the actual group ride mechanics. That might get dates wrong because we both have very young kids, and all of my days and weeks and months blur into one thing. But I think is it fall of 2022? I guess the first rides.
Our first ride was in September 2022.
Yeah, Terri's got the dates. September 2022. We just put out a little notice on Instagram for a group ride, family focused, and that was kind of born of, we both had young kids. We wanted to get back into cycling more. I was a bike commuter, and that kind of got me into the cycling world. Was race curious, but didn't really do much. Terri's an Ironman. She is very, very into endurance sports, so she had a rich history with it. We wanted to bike our kids around more and participate in these bike clubs that are so easy to see and want to participate in Minneapolis, but timing is an issue with bedtimes often. So 6-7 p.m. group rides don't necessarily work all the time. So ours are 10 a.m. typically on Saturday or Sunday mornings. They're fairly short, 8 to 10 miles, and ended up a place that has pastries typically, sometimes coffee. And they started out really small. So we had, I think the first ride, 8 or 9 people. If you count kids, there might be 12 or 13 involved there. But we were both just so smitten with the idea that anybody that we didn't know personally showed up. It felt like magic. You could put a notice on the internet and people show up with similar interests. They're kind of instant friends because they also have small kids and like to bike around with them. So we did a few rides that fall. And then that next spring, we had a ride, and through a combination of it having a sponsor and us just having more time to post up on the internet, upwards of 50 people showed up with kids, and we didn't really know what to do with that number of people. We'd never done a group ride that size before. So luckily we had some people there to help us out with organization. But since then it's leveled out to, I'd say, average 30-ish people a ride with kids. And we kind of did them every couple weeks, and that we'd promote them on Instagram. And then from there, just put the notice out a couple days before sometimes, and then do the ride and try to keep it as casual as possible. So I was going to show, just as a bit of context, if I can share my screen, or if you want to go to the website or Instagram, we can show some of the real videos. Let's see, I can share my screen.
You should be able to share now.
And so while Levi's kind of getting that going too, you know, kind of our rides also start typically at a playground or someplace with a parking lot for folks who are commuting with their bikes to come join our ride. And then just for the kids to get their wiggles out, just run around, talk to folks, talk about folks' bikes and things. And then what we typically do is we call it pastry pace. So it's real chill, maybe 9-10 miles an hour. We're always flexible, you know, pivoting with any potty breaks we need to do. We'll pull over, you know, off to the trail and usually just go cruising on some of the bike infrastructure that we're lucky to have here, or on pretty low traffic streets. And then destination is always to some that is going to be motivating for kids to be in on a ride for about 30 minutes or so, and then to getting pastries and such. And it's been a really fun way to connect with other folks with cargo bikes and kids, and just folks who just want to get good pastries around town, because there's an abundance of those. And Levi, if you get ready to show kind of what one of our
I have
rides look
security
like.
settings that I would have to restart Zoom to make it happen. So if you have allowed Zoom to share your screen in the past at all, Terrie, you can share your screen probably.
Yes, I can do that, I think. Why don't we let, maybe I can do that. And
I can also have it restart too real quick. Let's try that.
I think it's all good. I think, well, kind of a lot of what I'm writing too, it's just been really grassroots, and finding a lot of everything's basically been off from Instagram, which has been a really a neat, it's its own little ecosystem of bike ecosystem, which has been fun to connect with folks, and just other people who just want to get out with their kids, not just with, you know, aside just more than just commuting, and just actually doing rides. And I've actually found my two children, I've got two young kids, 3 and 4 now. In the wintertime, you know, we'll bring their Strider bikes in, let them ride around in the basement, but they'll play Piecycle, which is really cool to have them get excited about biking and everything, and getting out and going to different destinations in the basement too, and, you know, pretending to go play cafe afterwards too, and just having that joy in them too has been really, really fun to get them excited about moving their bodies and just going to do things but biking instead of driving. It's been really
I can try again now. I am restarted.
Okay.
I think it'll work this time. All right. Does everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like I'm at work suddenly. So we'll see how video plays on here. Let's just do an example of a ride. Typically, we do a reel afterwards of the ride. So like this one. Probably won't get, oh, there we go.
Don't be shy, don't be shy, don't be shy. Don't be baby, don't be shy.
That's pretty typical. And then to promote the rides, we make these little ride posters to get people excited about it and kind of preview the destinations with some details of where we start, all those things.
And
And-
usually once we're at the ride too, we try to connect with everyone who shows up and ask them about what neighborhood they're coming from so that for a future ride, we can always, we look into starting or stopping in the neighborhoods that they come from. And so we actually, for the folks who know Minneapolis, we did a ride in Southeast Minneapolis and Bend Brewing, and we actually had a handful of folks from over from North Minneapolis come. So we were like, we absolutely need to do a ride over north and make sure we're kind of hitting up all of the neighborhoods for folks who are coming, who are taking the time out to get out to our rides. And that's been a really fun way for I think everyone who's been showing up to see the city in a different way and to show their kids different parts of the city. And not just that, but experience the actual city of, going up the hills and down the hills and, kids waving their hands up in the air as we go down hills and stuff. So it's just been a really fun, it's just been a fun activity and just, I don't know if Piecycle is a lifestyle quite yet, but it's been a fun thing for us to do and really looking forward to what this next season of Piecycle brings for riders and little riders as well.
Terrie, do you want to talk a little bit about what we've learned about hosting group rides starting from nothing and after doing quite a few now?
You completely cut out there. I have no idea what you just said. Can you repeat that?
Do you want to talk at all about what we've had to learn, especially you definitely take on the hosting of the meetings, the group rides, what we've had to learn about, hosting the group rides, running them, picking routes and stuff. Just as we've gone on, I think we've got a little better at it.
Yeah, I feel like at the beginning it was more so of like where we wanted to check out all the pastry shops and stuff. But in terms of logistics of planning it, I kind of touched on it a bit. But it's usually starting or ending at a pastry shop or a playground. The playground's really key. We usually say that we meet up at a time and then actually leave half an hour later because kids are on their own schedule and parents are at the mercy of their schedule often. So, giving some buffer time and also gives time for folks to kind of mingle and chat about kids and bikes and such. And then our sweet spot tends to be about 5 miles, 5 to 8 miles, I guess, depending on if it's flat or hilly. And then the routes we don't really go on bike lanes. We're usually on bike trails or designated bike lanes, or like I would say street lanes. We don't typically do that because since we're open to anyone who wants to ride with us. We've had riders who are 6 to 12 who also join our rides in, and so just being communicative to everyone to setting the tone of the ride is this isn't we're getting to the destination as fast as we can. It's just, sometimes we'll go and, there's an eagle over there. We're all just going to slow down even more and just kind of observe things. And then just being communicative about the group of folks who are passing around us and stuff. But I think the general tone, since it is really just a community fun ride, that's been, I guess, there aren't really that many tricky logistics. Everyone just wants to get out there and get on their bikes and ride. So that's been,
Yeah, and there is something
not
automatically welcoming, I suppose, if you're intimidated at all about cycling, knowing that it's kids and families. They're certainly not going to get outpaced by anybody. Everyone's generally friendly. Any hesitation, I think we've seen a few instances of parents being a little hesitant just about their kids' behavior, but anyone who has toddlers know it's a wild card. Like, nobody's showing up with perfect kids in and week out that don't have emotions about what they're doing. So, I mean, the story we usually tell people is there was a ride where I think there was upwards of 5 or 6 potty breaks or I threw a glove out of the early breaks. I mean, one of my kids was sitting up front and just repeatedly, and this was the coldest ride we did. I think it was like upper 30s. She just repeatedly threw her gloves off the bike over and over again. And you start panicking of like, I'm supposed to be leading this ride and I have to stop so often. But it sets the tone where, whatever happens, it's fine. You're there. Everyone's here to stop. It's okay. Nobody's in a rush to get there.
It really is about the ride. The journey, I should say, not the ride.
Did you have anything else, Terry?
No, we're open to any Q&As that anyone's got for any of us, I suppose.
Yeah, we can take the rest of our time here to do general Q&A for any of our presenters, but then if anyone else has questions, this is definitely a community that knows a lot, and people are at various stages in their cargo bike journey and what they've learned on their own. So feel free to throw things into the chat, ask questions in the chat. One question that I did see a little bit earlier on was one about an interest in using a cargo bike for fishing and beach. So different than some of the family-oriented things that we've talked about before, but definitely a fun challenge. So does anyone have any inspiration for a cargo bike that might be good for fishing or beach-related riding?
I can jump in here. I'm Luke from Perennial Cycle. And I saw that question come through, and I've been trying to think of what's the best way to approach it. It really comes down to Mary's kind of list of what is it you're trying to do. So when you say fishing, yeah, we got to know, are you carrying a fishing pole? Is your fishing pole breaking down? How, that is clearly a pretty key item to figure out how to transport with your bike. But the fact is, you're, fishing and beach, that seems pretty simple. I'd be happy to throw out a recommendation. If you were to go out and try and ride a Tern HSD mid-tail cargo bike, seems like something capable of doing everything, and you just have to figure out how you're going to carry your fishing pole. The simplest way to carry something is with those big front loaders. So big front loaders, you could have an 8-foot fishing pole, and you could figure out how to put it in there without breaking it down. You could have a big bucket of minnows. So it does kind of come down to kind of what is it, where your priorities are lying in terms of what you're trying to carry. Would take a little bit of test ride, and it's going to be your own bike. So it's you that's making the compromises as to what fits best. Mary's bike that was in the pictures, the Fast Track, yeah, seems pretty ideal for fishing, huh, Mary? Anyway, we can move on to the next question, Ellie.
Yeah, feel free to add additional questions to the chat or you can also unmute yourself and ask directly, or if you have tips that you want to share specifically. I think if anyone has any tips for some of the questions that Mary put forward, that would be another good place to start too. I know that Mary, you had asked around like help balancing loads. So
yeah, let's
Yeah.
get right after it. I have this 175-pound man that I love to take out for dates and drinks. And the first couple times we did it, it's like, the takeoff especially is wobbly. It's like when you get going, it's not bad at all, but that takeoff. So like, is that me? Is that my bike? Do I need to put a load on the front rack? What do you
Was it
think?
before or after the drinks?
Before.
Yeah. I ride a lot of adults, and I would say it's partially you already being on the seat, if you can handle it. And then it's them learning to use their core and not moving at all. Like, because they'll react and like jerk back, and that's a lot of load to be wiggling behind you. And so, what I've kind of taught people is keep your feet down. Don't be holding up the bike, but keep them down just so they feel comfortable. And then you have to just commit, put it all the way up into turbo or whatever it is on your bike. Be on the seat. Do you know what the power position is for your pedal, where it's like up a little bit?
Yeah.
And like as much effort as you can, straight line forward, and tell them they cannot wiggle. I shout that a lot at like all adults and children. You can't wiggle. You get kicked off the bike if you wiggle. But it's not you, right? Like it's getting used to it. It's them getting used to it. And it's you committing to that first pedal. Somebody said like a box feet or a box bike is definitely easier to handle that load because they're down in front of you between the wheels. But I ride adults for 20 miles at a time on the back of a GSD. You just have to like commit to that first like kickoff, and then you're good.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
We will practice committing.
Yeah, before drinks. But you also asked about like flat changes and what you would do if like you're stranded out in the wild. I don't know for Minnesota, but in Colorado and some other states, AAA will pick up a bike if you have AAA. And so for a lot of folks, at least in Colorado, especially if they didn't have normal insurance, that's what I would say is like, hey, look at that. And then for me specifically, because I often have children with me, I just typically will tell either somebody in my family or a friend that I know, like, hey, I'm going for a bike ride. If it's outside of like 4 or 5 miles, like 3 miles, I can lock up my bike and we'll get home. But from there, I've locked up my bike, gotten a ride home with my kids, and then I go back to get the bike. You don't, if you don't have your 200-pound passenger with you, you don't have to worry about that. But, I think for me, it's like, think of it as a car, right? Like if you're somebody that would change the flat of a car on the side of a dark road, we can probably teach you to change your, bike tire. If you're not going to do it on a car, don't worry about doing it on a bike and just do what you would do with your car. Call AAA, call a friend, call whoever. I had multiple customers bring their bike on a tow truck to me, or, know a friend that has a pickup. Your bike's very small, but I'm thinking like the big urban arrows, they would just, either run a truck. I had a van for the shop and I would, go get it. If I could, I would go get it, or they would lock it and I would go get it. But for a lot of people, I would just tell, let's figure out how to prevent flats and then treat it like a car. Luke, she's your customer, so I'll let you tell her what you would recommend.
Well, Mary, the AAA thing is the same here, Arleigh, as it was in Colorado. If you have AAA, Mary, you can call them, and several cargo bikes get pulled up to the shop every year on a AAA truck. So that's a pretty solid option. And one tip as far as having an adult on the back, if you yourself put on about 50 pounds, that would really help. the closer the relationship is between what you're carrying and your weight, the better off you'll be. So probably not what you wanted to hear.
I think that sounds delightful. Let's go get the ice cream.
Can everybody hear me? Hello?
Yep.
I just wanted to add something about the weight of the bike. I think that if you're somebody who is used to having your foot down in the 6 o'clock position and then scooting like a skateboard with the other foot to start going on your bicycle is sort of like your normal mode of starting from a stop, that might be difficult for you if you have a fully loaded bike. I would really recommend that folks practice that, like putting your pedal in the 2 or 3 o'clock position when you're initially starting and then stepping on that pedal to go and just getting used to that first.
Yeah, great call, Erin. I call that the power position. My kids know it well. But yeah, just getting that initial kickoff is so important. Luke, somebody asked about Carla. I have a lot of opinions on this one. I'm going to break this question down. They're asking about heavy duty Carla trailers. I have a lot of experience with these, so I'm going to jump on this one, but these are heavy duty cargo trailers, not like a Burley. They actually have built-in braking, built-in lighting, typically carry 300 plus pounds. I'm going to break this question down into 2 parts. I'm biased to Carla because they have really good dedicated braking. So when you slow down, the trailer will actually ride up and apply disc brakes on both wheels. And this makes it so that your cargo bike isn't taking the load of braking and that stress coming at your bike. So for turn, they actually separate. They don't consider the Carla when they start talking about the trailer capacity, because the trailer capacity is often the braking and the weight for stopping. It does matter when you start talking about pulling weight, but that wasn't the question. But the one thing that they said is they don't have a cargo bike shop near them. And when somebody says that, I do start asking, like, okay, what kind of shops do you have near you? Do you have a good Bosch dealer? Do you have, a dealer that could work on a normal derailleur style bike? And if so, look at, a short tail or a mid tail. So like the Fast Track, the Turn HSD or the GSD, and then the biggest motor with torque, and a derailleur bike. Because a derailleur bike with a Bosch motor, Luke, I'm sorry for saying this, any Trek dealer can help you because they have to be Bosch certified, and they now have to have the lifts to pick up their heavy E mountain bikes. And so if you don't have a good cargo bike shop, that's what I typically recommend, is look at a derailleur bike that's a shorter mid-tail or short tail, because a normal bike shop isn't going to turn you away because they can't fit in their door. But Luke, you've been doing fun things with Carla.
Oh yeah, we love our Carla cargo trailer, and we use it on all of our group rides. And we have a storage unit that's a few miles from the shop, and it has helped us to not have to have a van. For the shop does not have a vehicle. We have Turn HSD that pulls around a Carla cargo trailer, and in fact, I just installed DIY fenders on it today. I'm a big fan of Carla, and we have gotten a lot of use out of it. But it is a next level. It is a next level product. So probably more than a lot of people need. But everybody that sees it would want it. Let's just say that.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
I'm just here talking about pets and securing dogs. I carried a dog in a cargo bike in a Bach feets, or as we like to call them, bark feets, for 9 years now, and on and off. And it's a combo platter of a good harness and then a lot of training and practice in the alleys and quiet streets. but it brings a great deal of joy to a lot of people to see a dog in a cargo bike. So give it a whirl.
Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. Yeah, and Levi put some great answers in the chat as well. So if anyone has some pet curiosities for the cargo bike. One additional question. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Levi.
Well, I was just going to say, I can attest to the joy part of that. When we pull our dog, I've never felt like you're being looked at more than when you have a dog on a bike with you. In a positive way. Everyone smiles at you, no matter where you go. And you realize they're looking past you to the dog behind you. But more attention than you'll ever get pulling a kid around. People are just delighted to see a dog on a bike.
Yes, I love that. Yes, literal cargo bike petting zoo. One more question that I want to get to before we wrap things up. There was a question about, you know, going to a grocery store and then running a few errands after that. If there's any tips about insulated bike bags that you can use with a cargo bike setup. So if anyone has any advice on that, we'd love to hear it.
So I guess I can speak a little bit to that. For one, this is brand specific, but Tern has just come out with a massive bag that's insulated and seals up, and definitely with some ice could keep things cold for 24 hours. So I also just saw, I don't know who was sharing this. It was a cargo bike shop that they were giving away a Yeti cooler with every cargo bike that they sell for the next month. It seems like I wanted to learn a little bit more. There wasn't a link to the specific product. I assumed
it's
it was
Mandolin in Chicago.
Chicago. Is it a pretty generic thing that she's selling, Arleigh? Do you know?
It's a very nice Yeti cooler.
Okay.
You know, I've been looking at the coolers that turn into a backpack for this exact reason. You know, that just have a backpack strap. Yeah, I'm with you though. Like just having a Trader Joe's or, you know, Wegmans is my problem here. If you don't know what Wegmans is, it's like Whole Foods on another level. But yeah, just keeping those type of cooler bags, especially for like lunches and things, are pretty important. Yeah, the rigid coolers are nice. I've strapped a couple Yetis to the back of cargo bikes, and they've worked out really well. I think it just depends how much stuff you're looking. I try to chain link or loop my trips so the groceries at the end. But I guess it just kind of depends where you're going and how you're carrying it.
Great. Thank you everyone for both answering these questions, but then also sharing so many great things in the chat. We'll be sure to save it to make sure we can, you know, share it out as a future resource and have it on hand. Before we wrap up, I want to announce the raffle winners. So we have 3 prizes that we'll be doing today, and had a name randomizer to select these. Ian Buck has won the Urban Arrow t-shirt. Laura Mitchell has won the Tern shirt. And then Luke Hansen has won the Tern tool. So we'll be in touch to make sure we get all those prizes to you. And yeah, we really appreciate everyone coming. Do any of the panelists have any upcoming events or things that they want to plug before we wrap up?
I just want to say I'm on a lot of webinars internationally, and I'm just so impressed that you guys are doing this. And I hope everyone local knows how much of a godsend you have. You want to be able to have the advocacy and infrastructure without bike shops like this.
Yeah, and I want to add on that I'm really grateful for you organizing this all and everyone to speak about their experiences and like tips and tricks. It's really great to see how we can all grow the cargo bike ecosystem. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending and for sharing this with us. We're looking forward to pastry rides coming up in April, and we'll have some family fun rides coming up this summer too. So lots to look forward to in the cargo bike world. And Piecycle's Instagram was in the chat as well. So